Hello Aries, and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for June 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater detail all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. Now, Mars is your ruler and spends the whole of this month in the sign of Leo, your sister fire sign, which is the 5th solar house. That's very gregarious, it's very alluring, it's going to give you a major ongoing boost of self-confidence, but it's joined by its partner in relating, Venus, on the 5th, and Venus is going to be in this glorious part of your situation right through to the 9th of October. And this is because of a long 44-day retrograde, which is going to begin on the 23rd of July. Now that does hold a few potential challenges, but overall this combination suggests that this is a month which can showcase that part of you that loves to interact with others. So that's the key thing to look out for. But I've got lots more to tell you about. Not least, we have the summer solstice, which occurs on the 21st. What's the implication of that? That ushers in cardinal quadrant 2, the second 13-week period in terms of Western astrology. What are the prospects for your sign from that? So please stay with me for more. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new here, it's great to have you with me. This is very much a community, so please do feel that you can share any comments. I try to interact with each one, but please also click on or tap on the subscribe button. This means every time I drop a video, you'll get an alert. Also, if you would like to get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, totally free, you can sign up for your Sun or your Ascendant or both. The choice is yours. Please see the link below. And if you would like to ascend above this zodiac broadcast and really embrace more serious astrology and the power of it and how it can influence your future so helpfully, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can provide for you your life roadmap report. This can help you to get a much more intimate understanding of the patterns that have impacted on your journey so far, but also how you can capitalize on your strength and avoid some of the challenges that may have repeated themselves. Also, my special package of 30% off, you can get your 12-month personal forecast, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights for the months to come. If you don't know your time, my new solar package works in the same way, 30% off, the life roadmap and the forecast, but this is based on your sun. And if you enjoy sun sign astrology videos on YouTube, this is going to be something that you easily relate to, but can still give you some incredibly valuable insights. Please see the links below for more. So Aries, let's just take a little look at where all the key players are as we come into June. So we have the Sun in the quick moving sign of Gemini, which gives you a certain amount of mental dexterity. Now it is true that we are going to have a new moon in this part of your situation on the 18th, but it is going to be clashing with Neptune. And Neptune continues along with Saturn in the part of your situation to do with reflection and perhaps a need to get more closely in touch with some of the shadow sides of life that we don't always find easy to look at, particularly in the Western world, where we tend to think that if we're making progress in the material plane, that naturally reflects into our sense of happiness. And what the planets are saying to you, with Saturn being in this 12th house for the next couple of years, is that however much you may want to live only in the moment, the chances are you are going to have to consider what's happened in your past, learn lessons from it, and get a much deeper understanding of what makes you tick, but also others. But the sign of Pisces, where Neptune is located, is also ruled by Jupiter, which is much less known. And Jupiter is the traditional ruler of that sign, and it's also about more spiritual values through its rulership of Pisces. And it's actually in a sextile with Saturn for the whole of this month. And the why this is so significant is that Jupiter is going to be in your sector of resources, self-worth, and everyday money. And the angle between them is a good balance between the more energetic and optimistic vibe of Jupiter for its rulership of Sagittarius and the more steadying energies of Saturn. So basically, risk and reward are well balanced for you this month, and particularly on the 19th when they become exact. And what this is saying to you is that if you can cherish and appreciate past experiences, knowledge and skills, but also find a way to adapt them into your current circumstances, the chances are you can make some progress, but in a way which is sustainable. Now, there is a full moon on the 4th, and this suggests that the ideas that you've been percolating recently could be challenged by somebody. Perhaps you're going to want to break out from a particular mode of being and inject your world with greater spontaneity. And one of the great ways you could do that over the following 2 weeks is to book a holiday or go on an actual journey or vacation. It will be really good for you. But on the 5th, that highlight that I mentioned before in the introduction is of Venus arriving in Leo. Now, Venus in Leo has a dazzling reputation. And of course, Mars, your ruler, also being in Leo already, means that this 5th house energy is very charismatic. But here's the paradox of this month for you, because the energy of Saturn and Neptune is asking you to stay reflective. The energy of Venus and Mars is asking you to be very, very outgoing and interactive. So finding a sweet spot between the two is going to be helpful. And what helps that process is that on the 11th, Mercury powers into the sign of Gemini. And why this is particularly helpful to you is that Mercury rules this sign, but because you are the first sign of the zodiac, it means it is also your house 3. So very redolent of the energy of Gemini anyway. So it's going to be a speeding up. And even if there are some things that you do need to consider, I feel that that combined energy of the Sun and Mercury in Gemini suggests that the Leo energy of Venus and Mars gets a real platform. So the desire of those two planets, particularly romantically, is added to the compulsion to communicate more. So I think you're going to interact with people a lot more from the 11th. Ironically though, Pluto moves out of the sign of Aquarius, where it's had its brief 11-week sojourn, and back into the sign of Capricorn, where it was for 15 years until the 23rd of March. So it's going to be in Capricorn for the rest of this year, and will return to Aquarius on the 21st of January 2024. What does this mean? Well, Pluto's slowing down, and you can see my deep dive about Pluto in retrograde underneath this video. Pluto slowing down is very much about our collective direction of travel, but I feel that also for you it's about work, and it's about not being too idealistic as Pluto in Aquarius may have tempted you to be. It's about being very realistic about what your resources are, and also your commitments and obligations in the more material world. However, in week 3, the Sun is in a quincunx with Pluto, and this also feeds into the retrograde of Saturn, which begins on the 17th. This is going to go on to the 4th of November. So if you do find yourself, despite the pull of that Venus and Mars energy, at times wanting to retreat back into your shell, it wouldn't be an entire surprise with those two big retrogrades. Pluto was ongoing but moving back into the Earth sign of Capricorn, and Saturn in Pisces, which is not its best location, becoming a bit more sluggish. You could feel that some structures which have been very strong in your life, particularly emotional structures, could be changing, but maybe that dazzling energy of Venus, Mars, Mercury and the Sun is also bringing new people into your world as well. Now the new moon on the 18th does square up with Neptune, and that can lead to some gossip. So over the following month, even if you do encounter some bright and breezy people, try to stay conscious of what their motives may be, and I wouldn't be too open about some rather more confidential elements of your history. It's probably a good idea to keep your cards a little close to your chest. I should say that in the first 2 weeks of this month also the North Node is going to be in a conjunction with Jupiter, which can do wonders for your resources, particularly if it has felt a little bit difficult. Obviously for many of us the cost of living crisis has been very painful. A lot of increased costs, whatever our initial income had been, it's been a big shift. So that's something to be mindful of. I should also say that Venus is going to be in an opposition with Pluto in the first 10 days of this month. So when it comes to any offers you get, romantic or financial, always be looking to understand what the motivation of the offerer is. But then on the 21st we have the summer solstice. A really important event in Western tropical astrology because it's predicated on the seasons, not on the moving constellations. So the sun moves into Cancer, which is very much about home, emotion, family, security, but it is in a quincunx with Pluto. So your need to find a balance between your friendships and your longer term hopes and what you need emotionally in the here and now is really the nub of what you'll be grappling with in the following 13 weeks. Mercury moves into Cancer, joining up with the Sun on the 28th, which can be very useful to you in a way, but it could also see you just losing some of that impetus that you'd first got when Mercury moved into Gemini and Venus into Leo, and wanting to perhaps be a little more reflective. But if there is somebody that's making overtures to you romantically, that could peak up in the last 3 days as Venus gets very close to Mars. But I think you're going to want to know what their emotional motivations are. So even if someone seems to be great fun to be with, whatever your age or status, I think this month is saying, how will it feel? What will they bring to your life in terms of emotional security? That is not necessarily how we first are attracted to people. It's usually the glamour, it's usually the allure, it's usually the attraction. But I think you're going to find yourself being very cautious in some ways, but not a bad way. So you can balance your great ability to go for it when you see opportunities in the moment, but also just pause in a sec to check that this is the right thing for you. Now your ruler is challenged in the last 10 days of this month by Uranus, so that could make you a little bit more impulsive with splashing out on things. And the key is, if you are attracted to an item which you feel is very desirable and you can't do without it, perhaps the thing is to reflect on what will its practical worth be to you future forwards. That might just give you a little bit of a buffer against being too impetuous around your resources. But if there is someone you strongly fancy, I feel that something could move quite quickly in the last 10 days. But I refer to my earlier point that just consider how things feel. So this month does give you great opportunities to sparkle, shine and dazzle people with your personality, the way you dress, your looks, your humour, your charm, all that Venusian and Mars energy. But it's also asking you to communicate effectively, Mercury and the Sun in Gemini. But then as the month progresses, it's more about how it feels, particularly with Saturn in that retrograde from the 17th. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Aries. I'm wishing you all the best for this month. Please like, comment or subscribe.